Can you guys see that it's recording?
Yeah, I can now.
Yeah, it says
Okay.
it is.
Cool. Okay, so
I know Miss Elmin's gonna watch this. So just for you, Miss Elmin, for week 1, we read the first 4 chapters, which was up to page 83. So just I guess if she wants to follow along.
which sucks.
Yes. What a perfect last sentence. I went to the
It was so good. Like the cliffhanger is so good.
I finished. Why did we decide that we have to stop?
I know, I was finishing and I was like, I want to read more.
Yeah.
I also though just gotta laugh out of like all the chapter names, and like I know chapter 5 just made me laugh as I like turned the page. I'm like, oh my god.
Because even though this is like a very serious topic, and like the overall book is just a very serious, the topic is just very, serious. But there were like a lot of very funny moments, like just the boys hanging out and being like best friends. That was just like such a sweet moment,
And looking for Joe's mother's greatness, but they're all like having fun together.
Yeah.
It's a weird combination of emotions, but it's nice.
It was so done though, because I know just the fact that the author was able to like capture like what probably a group of 13-year-old boys would be doing on their day off.
Yeah.
Like she did it so well, and I like just the contrast of that one chapter where Joe's crying and then his friends show up and they all just jump into the lake together, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice.
Yeah, it was. And then him and his aunt, oh my gosh. I literally die whenever he talks about her. So funny. He's very obsessed with her. I don't understand, but it's fine.
I feel how like every boy feels about their aunt, but I really like her boob.
Just a weird. It's so funny.
And then just the fact that there was so much description, like it was so believable that he like had a thing for her, because it would be like, I talked to my uncle with very little description, and then like a whole page about just how she looks in her past. Oh my goodness.
And then whenever they were trying to decide to where to go get a snack, he was like, I don't share her with them.
Right. He was like really possessive about it. I was like, oh, okay.
I laughed so hard when they were talking about, he's like, oh yeah, and she used to like be a stripper, and now I have that picture labeled homework. That made me laugh so hard.
Like buried deep in his closet.
That was like a believable moment where I was like,
yeah,
the real person.
Yeah, I was like, the author did such a good job at like describing what a typical teenage boy would be like.
Oh my gosh.
So funny.
I also though I saw this in like the first page, and at first I thought it was maybe like a mistake. There are no quotation marks of like any kind.
Right.
It's all like, and I like that because I feel like I'm just in his head. It's just everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this person is talking to me, and I'm like, that's so well done.
At first, I was like a little confused. I was like, "Wait, are they talking?" And then, once you get used to it, it's like really easy to tell when people are talking and stuff. But I really like it. Like I've never read a book like that.
Me neither. I was thinking about that too. I was like, I'm pretty sure going back and looking through the books I've read, I was like, there's some quotations, but this book is just so interesting because, yeah, like what you said, it feels like you're there, like you're feeling everything that he's feeling.
Yeah.
It's one author. She did a really good job though too, is just how she introduced things. The first chapter was really good because it was what happened to his mother in detail, and then the next chapter was, as it's calming down, we get introduced to this cast of friends and just how each one of them is so different, and we get such a really nice description about them. I thought that was well done.
And I thought it was nice that like the first thing she talked about was like Joe and his family, because like how much like his mother affects him, because she was gone for like just a little bit more than normal, and Joe and his dad were like, we have to go find her, like this is not
he showed like the use of time in this book incredible. Like every time she referenced like a clock or time or something, I was like, wow, because they were said that like once they noticed that she was gone, like time stopped. And
Mhm.
I was like, that's just such a good way of representing like the family and like their dynamic. Like one person isn't there, like it throws off everything. And I just thought that was amazing that she like kept bringing that back to that.
Yeah, because I know that I know it said later in one of the chapters is like when we went to go find mom, dad unplugged the clock, which is just another like showing
Yeah.
of how she affects them and how time stops. And after she comes back from the hospital, he bought a new clock, which is just she's the time in the family, and it changed. And they got rid of the past, and they can't have it back. And I'm like, this is really subtly well done.
And Joe like really didn't like the clock. He was like, it's ugly and it's like he wanted to go
Hmm.
back to the old clock. And he wanted to go back to his mother.
Something that I thought was really interesting was that the mother never had like dialogue before the accident. Like they always, it was just him and his dad. And then whenever they talk about like things that she'd said or done in the past, it'd always be like in past tense. So like it would just be, this is what like used to happen. But like she never had any dialogue before the accident actually happened. And I don't really know why I thought that was so significant, but like it just showed that, I don't know, it just very, I thought that it was important because like it's just him and his dad, and then we just get to see what his mom used to be like before all this, and what this accident or like this attack has caused in their family.
I know for like, and that's really interesting. Those two is as someone who, we're reading it, we're just meeting them. You ever, think about something that used to happen, you're like, man, I wish I could go back. It happened so quickly for them. And for us, it's like, well, this is just where we jump into the story. And it's, yeah, we never got to see her before this. So this is what we have now. And I thought that was well done.
Yeah.
I will say though too, I also we found out right away that the mom and dad were very much in love. I thought that was sweet. I like that Joe made a point of pointing out that his dad wanted to find his mom, not just know where she was, that he went out and borrowed a car to find her, and that when he found her, he got all happy and was like, oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were talking about that he's like, this is the first time since we've been together that we haven't slept in the same bed. And that like broke my heart. It made me so sad. Because he really loved her.
And like when they were going to find the mom, like the dad, like just the things that he said were just so sad. Like he was just making up excuses, or not excuses, but like going through different scenarios of what could have happened so that he didn't have to assume the worst. He was like, oh, maybe she just like she got a flat tire, or she just went to the store or something. But he was really trying not to go down that like the mindset of something really bad had happened to her.
I think he was also doing that for Joe. I think in his head, he was definitely like super, super concerned that something bad happened just because of how like it seems like the mother was very, very routine in what she did. And, it's obvious that Joe and his father were super used to that. And so it's just like the tiniest little thing, she didn't come home at the right time. They're like freaking out.
Yeah.
I also, though, I liked towards the end of the last chapter when Joe was going back because he was falling asleep in his head thinking about why his mom left in such a hurry, and he's putting all these little pieces together. I like it because it's a bit of a mystery too. He's trying to be like, well, wait, why did she leave in such a hurry? What was so important, and what was this file that we never saw? So I'm kind of thinking there's more to it than what we know right now, which I'm sure we'll find out later. But I thought that was well done because it was just subtly implied that something's up. I don't think that she would just leave like that for nothing. So
I think he definitely gets that thought process from his father, because you can see how meticulous his father is. And it's just like, I think his dad really influenced him to like want to find out what happened. And so I just think there's a lot of family influence in Joe. And I think that that's shown really, really well.
Yeah. I think that when the dad like scared his mom and then she dropped the casserole, I thought that it was really important that they like the dad had almost just been like, okay, we're gonna go through these files, we have to know what happened. Like I know, Joe, you're like 13 or something, and you're very young, but this is what we have to do. We have to find out what happened. I just thought that was like, I don't know, very meaningful in the book because Joe, he isn't treating Joe like a kid. There's moments where you like that he's trying to like spare Joe from knowing everything, but in like those other moments, it's just like he's saying, yeah, we have to know what happened, so you have to be involved.
Joe had a really like coming of age moment is when his mom first got back, and she threw up all over her shirt, she's sweating, she's a mess, she's about to have a nervous breakdown, she's bleeding, and his dad's like, go to your uncle and aunt and you can meet us there, and he's like, absolutely not. He's like, I'm not listening to you, I'm taking care of my mom. And just the fact that it was written in such a way where it's the dad didn't even have to, he couldn't even get him to leave. He's like, this is my mother who I love and I'm taking care of her. I thought that was good because it was one, his coming of age moment to me, or at least one of the first ones. And then two, it showed just how much he loved his mom. It wasn't just he wasn't scared. He wasn't, like a typical kid, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with that. She's my mother and I'm going to carry her through anything she's going through. And I just thought that was really nice. So
they really have like a great family dynamic. It's like,
yeah,
how much they all love each other. And I think like you see that like immediately. And that's just, the author did a great job writing that.
That's what hurts them the most. I already feel kind of connected to them because in the first chapter, we see the father and the son worrying about, the third part of their family going out, and then how much she meant to them. And then throughout the story, she's just disappearing from their lives as she's trying to recover and get over what happened to her, and how it's breaking the dad down slowly, and how Joe is like, I got to do something. I can't live like this. And it's just very well done.
Yeah. Kind of going off of that, it's just like, yeah, you can definitely see the dad's, like him coping with the situation. It's getting, like it progressively, I think that it's getting worse. I know that he wants like Joe to not like see that. And I think that's like one of the saddest parts because like, and then Joe thinks that like that his father isn't worried about him anymore. Like when he said like, did you even know where I was sleeping last night or something like that? I was like, he just thinks that his dad is so focused on his mom and like the situation that they're in and trying to find the person who attacked her that he's like my dad just doesn't even notice me anymore. And I just thought that was like so sad, very sad.
Going on what you just said, I like the part where he goes to wake up his mom and she out of instinct punches him in the face.
Yeah.
And then later in the book he talks about that. He's like, she can stay up there, she punched me. And then he sees his mom later and she's bruised and her lip is like broken, she still has like scars, and he's like, oh my gosh, I feel so horrible. But then later at the end of the book when he's mad at his dad, he's like, and he didn't even care that she punched me. So I thought that was
right.
He is obviously hurting, but he's taking out these little things on his dad because it's the only person he can take it out on. And I was like, that's a believable character moment.
Yeah. I think the author did a great job like describing how like emotionally and psychologically each of the characters are changed because the mother was raped, including the mother. And it's really, really good writing.
It is, yeah. I think my favorite line that I've read so far, I think, Savannah, you mentioned this earlier, but it was at the end of that chapter when he's crying and he says, I wrote it down because I was like, I gotta remember. But it said, yes, tears can be thoughts, yes, tears can be thoughts, why not? Because it was just like, he went into the roundhouse and like, he was just imagining, even though his dad didn't tell him that's where it happened, like he figured it out. And it was just like this moment where he was realizing that everything, like the rape happened here, like his mom was attacked, she had to escape, and he just started crying. And I was like, that is such like, it was a really good moment. I think the writer did a really good job at that moment.
I know, because sometimes when something big like that happens, your brain doesn't process, the event or the trauma until much later. I don't know, you just I'm sure she was on adrenaline, their whole family was on adrenaline for the first couple of while, and then it was his first moment to step back and be like, wow, somebody attacked and raped my mother here, and she to get away. And that was just, it was a good moment for him, and that's why I was like, wow. And I like the quote that he picked, so.
Yeah, I like how the author's really good at like the contrast between him having to grow up soon, but then also having like, kid moments too, because when he was with his friends and they were like looking for clues, but things that like evidence. It was just they were talking about like their favorite shows and like character would be this and which character would be that. And I was like, oh, this is just like, even though that he has to grow up, like this has made him grow up a lot faster, there's still like these childhood moments that he's still having.
I like
I was
when they were talking about Star Trek. That was so cute. I know it's
so cute.
such detail. They're like, I want to be this character. Nobody wants to be this character. Like that was just so well done. And again, just a really good writing because it was believable. I felt like I was watching them all argue about who wanted to be what character.
Yeah. And none of them wanted to be the character their own age. They were like, no, that character is not cool. I thought that was so funny.
Can we talk about the ghost in chapter 4?
Yes.
Because I made a mark about that because I didn't know what that was because it was just quickly added and then like not discussed again. And I was like, a ghost? I know. Wait, you go.
Whenever he was first describing it, at first I thought it was like a person and it was gonna be like the rapist coming back or something.
Yeah.
And then he was like, it's human, but it's not really human. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then he was like, oh, that was definitely a ghost. And I was like, oh, okay.
I know, because I know that they were talking about Pearl, the dog, and like she didn't bark or anything. And like after he saw it, it's like the dog lay down and went to bed. And so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was a person too, but now I'm starting to think maybe it wasn't a person because if the dog who barks at everybody had no reaction, maybe something just Joe saw. Is it something in his mind? So I thought that was cool.
And then the dad had a surprising reaction too, because usually you think like, or I don't know, just like his thought process throughout the book, you're like, oh, he's a pretty like straightforward guy, and I don't think that he would like believe in ghosts. So then he was like, Dad, I saw a ghost, and then his dad was like, yeah, that sometimes happens. It was just so casual. I was like, I just didn't really think about his dad, believing in ghosts. I don't know.
And then he was like, wait, why does he believe in ghosts? Like, this is weird. He's
Yeah.
like not that type of person. And
he's a man who makes life off evidence, and he's just, oh yeah, I saw something for sure. Like that, what?
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what that is. I honestly, I thought it was a person too. I was like, it's probably the rapist just like out there looking at his window. I don't know why the rapist would be looking at his window. I don't know. I was just really confused by that. But
Wait.
What'd you say? No, you go.
I was gonna say I'm interested to see because I know, excuse me, they live, they live with their tribe on a reservation. So I'm curious if a spirit has anything to do with his background or culture, or if it's just something psychological in his own mind. I'm wondering if that is going to come into play because I think that'll be really interesting. And just everyone else's interpretation of what he saw. I'm sure his friends will think it's something, and anybody he asks. But I'm wondering if anybody in his community is going to be like, oh, it's this specific thing because of who we are as, a community. So I'm interested to see what everyone else's interpretation of it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I just think that Joe's like so smart for such a kid, like who's so young. He just, when he was trying to find the evidence, it just came so clearly to him. He was just like, oh, he probably like went down here along the fence and like went into the river, and he would definitely want to sink like the can. And I was like, I would never have put that together. I would never have been like, oh yeah, obviously he's gonna sink the can. But he found it so easily, and I was like, wow, this is just, I think that's definitely gonna be interesting to see like in the future because he's so smart and he just gets things so easily.
And I'm curious to see like who, because I assume that they find out who is the rapist. I'm interested to see if it'll be Joe or his father or like them together, or I mean, it probably won't be the police, but it could be. And then, obviously the battle of jurisdiction will be a huge factor in if this person gets charged for what they did. And honestly, if they don't get charged, I will probably cry and I will be very upset.
Yeah.
It's like one of you guys said it. It's like you're already attached to the characters, kind of. It's just like, you know, especially Joe. It's just
Yeah.
I like that we saw in the beginning that the father is already worried about who's going to take the case, and he called 3 different forms of, the law.
Right.
Really good in the first chapters to be introduced that this is already a struggle that we're seeing. So I know that's probably going to come back into play. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that pans out and who's going to take the case and who's going to have jurisdiction over it.
Mm-hmm.
and they're also going through the cases to look for suspects, and I'm pretty sure that the father was probably looking at jurisdictional things just to see like if there was any precedent set already. But I think it's going to be messy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I thought the cases they were going through were actually really important. I don't know which ones are going to end up matching up with who attacked the mom, but I thought that it was really interesting to see just what happened in these cases, how the dad is really involved in all the cases, how many people are out to get him, just how many people could want revenge for something that happened. And I hope that comes back into play later because I'm really interested to know if this person's gonna get caught, what's gonna happen.
I like that she took almost a whole chapter to explain just a bunch of different court cases. I know she opened up a new chapter and that was really kind of it was like you woke up and he's like, okay, this is what we have to do now. And just to read the 4 or 5 different cases, and you don't realize how in the father's work, how many people he meets and how many lives he touches and changes. So the fact that, someone could be wanting revenge over having to pay a fine for petty theft, it's incredible because you don't know who these people are yet. So,
and I think his assistant is funny that she just knows everything about everyone, and she helps him so much in his cases. I liked her as a person pretty much.
I really like that they introduced more of their family, like that aunt and uncle and his grandfather. I just thought that those were all just really I know that they aren't the main characters of the book, but it's just you get to see what they're thinking about, the mom who's always been close with her sister. When you mentioned the gasoline, she just she thought she was gonna faint because of everything that had happened, and I was it's just really interesting to see everything how it affects so many people.
I'm excited to keep reading. I'm so excited. I know for next week, it's a bit of there's some bigger chapters in there. So
Yeah.
And one thing though, we only read 4 chapters, but there was so much in those 4 chapters that she did a really good job just packing so much information without making it boring. Because I know some books with bigger books, they drain on forever. But even the little details she's telling, they're all important, and she did a really good job. So I'm really excited to keep reading.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really good. Even the cover of this book, it's amazing. I was looking at this and I was like, wow. But I like how she's introduced the culture, and I mean obviously it is their lifestyle, but you just see the different parts, the when they were in I think it was called the sweat house or the sweat lodge or something like that, and it blew up, and that was I thought that was really important because there were so many men in there, and then they were just all I think it was like a holy place or something, and then apparently it blew up because of some pepper.
Someone said pepper instead of medicine.
I was kind of confused at that part, but
I was confused as what the ceremony was for specifically and what the medicine was. But of course, I'm not super knowledgeable about the culture. So I tried to look it up and I couldn't really find that much, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I like that she talked about the fact that they had to hide a lot of their culture and what they did, and that they had to bring Bibles. And whenever
Yeah.
the Catholic superintendent would come by, they would all take out their Bibles and open up to a certain passage to read. I thought that was really interesting because, you know, it's they are all on a reservation. It should be a place for them and their culture, but even they're not allowed to have some kind of practices. I thought that was interesting. And then the fact that I liked that they had, or they used to have, one of the Catholic priests, Father Damien, come and sit with them and be like, this, I want to learn about you guys. I thought that was important that they had a character outside the reservation who was like, but this is who you are, you shouldn't hide that. And the fact that he has died in the book, I thought that might be some kind of symbolism, as, you know, this is someone who cares about us but is passed, so now we're once again kind of by ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And then we're like left thinking about who's the new priest. Like the dad was very, very animate about talking about, like, he seems kind of like a big suspect because he's an ex-Marine, and the dad was just really putting things together. And I thought that it was really funny, not really funny, but like at the end when he was like, Joe, you heard me talking about that? And Joe was like, yeah, I was listening. And then it was just really like a good moment because he's like, oh, so I went to the roundhouse because, sorry. But I don't know. I guess that's who is like, is that, I guess that's who I think like the lead suspect is, but I don't really know. What do you guys think? Like, who do you think,
I
like,
think
who do
definitely between that one son who had the mother that was like awful. I think of like the grocery store or the gas station thing. I don't remember exactly. But I think that he's definitely a suspect. But then I agree. I think that the the new priest is probably the biggest suspect. Just because they were talking about how like the burning of the roundhouse, how that would be like related to him and be like a sacrifice to him. And
you
that was like major like incriminating evidence.
think?
I think I'm leaning towards the priest, but that's just because of how they introduced him. And when they were all putting the pieces together, they're like, well, he fits this, he's new, and, you know, he's someone who is adamantly different and kind of almost in a way against our culture, so he seems like someone who would be. But I'm also curious to see if uh our suspect hasn't been introduced yet, and maybe we'll see him later. And
Yeah.
this might be quick, you know, someone to blame right now, and
Mhm.
it might be the dad's scapegoat until they find somebody. I'm really interested to see, but I know we're probably going to get to hear more about the priest in the next coming chapters. So
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of important that even though the family isn't very religious, they still have their rituals that they do. I thought that was a good thing that the author mentioned because, like, even though like, the sitting down and eating dinner together was, I don't know, it was just a really good detail because once the mom, like, the attack happened, they wouldn't eat together anymore, and when she accidentally dropped the casserole and then went upstairs. And I think he said something about like when that ritual ended or something, like it was like tearing apart the family, you know. It was just because that's something they were so used to, like the family dynamic was working, and then it just got, messed up and very sad.
Yeah, I think rituals definitely play like a big part in the book. And they're different for every like group of people that you see, but I think just like, you know, their rituals are ruined and it's, you know, and at one point um Joe said something I think about like finding like the man who severed his mother's spirit from her body, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it's just like it just goes to show like how impacted his mother really is. And that I think he said that after the whole like dropping the casserole thing happened. It,
Mhm.
I don't know, that just like stuck with me. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so powerful.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was a really well written line, though. You just said it and I remembered it. I'm like, just reading it, I like felt like my, you know, you feel like your gut wrench a little bit. You're like, oh my gosh, because you can just see it. And
Mhm.
one thing though I really like with this book too is no matter what is happening, the writing is so well done.
Yes.
Any little description is well done, anything someone says is well done, and it all flows and it's just very believable. And that's why I'm so attached to everybody right now.
Right. And I think like there's very subtle meanings that we pick up on, and we're just like, I think that's really good writing. Like it reminded me of kind of the time and stuff in this book really reminded me of when we were reading The Great Gatsby and like the different colors that were in that. I was like, I love subtle meanings. I love like picking up on things.
Mhm.
I just think that it's a really well written book.
Exactly.
I think this would be a fun one to go back after we read it, just on our own, because I'm reading it and kind of purposely trying to find things and analyze it, but then I'd be curious just to read it, having kind of knowing what it's about, and then
Mhm.
go back, like, I didn't notice this before, or this makes more sense because I understand what's happening now. So,
Mhm.
because this book is almost like a mystery book, there's so much stuff happening, there's so many details we don't know, so to know how it ends and then to go back and be like, I never noticed this,
Mhm.
having hindsight bias, I think it'll be really cool to go back and reread.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I like that they're giving the years too, because I always want to know like what time it is and like how much time has passed since the accident and like how much time has passed since this event and where they're at and what's happened. I always like when they give a timeline. Makes makes it a little bit better for me to comprehend everything.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. I also like that was written back in the late 80s, so there's no real like telephones, or besides maybe a house phone, there's no real like recreational internet or anything. In addition, them already being kind of cut off from everyone else, being on their reserve, which is just, I think it isolates everyone just a little bit more. And then the fact that, everybody talks about seeing people, you would have to walk and to have meetings. And that's where I think rituals come into play and are important, because you can't just pick up a phone and text somebody, hey, do you want to go? We know we have a time to see each other, this date, this place. So that's just something else I think it's just really good. It's such a good book.
I really want to know more about the mom's job. I know they gave like a brief description of what she does, um, but I'm really interested. Yeah, like you were saying, Maddie. I feel like that file. There's just so much more to it. I think there's just. I don't think that. I feel like it has to be a part of a bigger picture. I don't think that it would just be like, oh, she just went back for a file. I think that there's something in that file that maybe the rapist like didn't want people to know, or I don't really know. I just think that
She came home with the file. Like I think whenever she was in her car, like I don't know if she had gotten the file already or if she hadn't even gotten to her work yet, but like
mhm,
she didn't even come home with it. So I think it definitely will play a part in what happened. And I like that Joe picks up on that pretty quickly.
mhm,
And then
I'm
it
wondering
really think
if
about it.
it's an actual file though, because I know that what happened is she got a phone call and left saying she's going to go get a file, but we never see a file. We never hear about one unless it's just thinking about it. So I'm wondering if there might be something else that was just her covering up.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not saying anything bad about her, but I'm wondering if there's definitely more than what she's letting on about whatever she had to go do. So, yeah.
but props to the dad for putting that spare key on the outside of her car. When he talked to her, when they talked about like that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's actually so smart. If you like realize that you get locked out of your car pretty often, he was just like, what if I'm not around? I need to put a key on the bottom of her car so that she can go and get like, so that she can just get into her car. And that was so smart. She would definitely, I don't think that she would be alive if it weren't for that key.
Yeah. It was in a little mint box. That made me almost kind of laugh a little bit, just of like how it's like, it's almost ridiculous. Just, oh, you lose your key? Well, I'll like, put this little mint box like underneath the wheel so nobody will bother it. It'll be safe up there. And if you get locked out, and it's just funny because the whole purpose of that was, next time you're at the store and you forget it, you'll be fine. But that was just the irony of how important that was. And, And that also shows how much he loves his wife, though. Because I think, if you were like, oh, well, it's your fault you left it, but he's like, oh, well, if I'm not here, I don't want you to have to call somebody or have Joe come help you. So I will take the time to make this little makeshift box for you in the car or under the car so that you don't have to worry. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
I thought it was really upsetting when Joe started like at the end. I don't really think that he had ever blamed himself for like what happened until like the end when he was like, I could have gone with her that day, or I could have done that chore for her. I could have just been there so that this wouldn't have happened. And I was like, that's so sad because like throughout like the majority of the book so far, he was just been like, this has been a bad accident, but like I need to find out who did it. But like he wasn't really blaming himself until like that one moment. And I was like, oh no, it's just so really upsetting. And I like how they show details about how they've changed their life since the accident. Like they got a guard dog, they locked the back door when he was trying to get home that one day, and he tried to come in through the back and it was locked, so he had to like get, and then he like his dad had to open the door for him at one point. And I think that it's just like those details that really like show how much this family has been affected.
Especially because like Joe didn't want the dog. I think that was kind of a big thing because usually like I feel like kids are usually asking their parents for dogs if like
Right.
wants a dog. No, and then he's like, I don't want this dog. And his dad is like, no, we need this dog. This dog barks whenever it sees a person. And then Joe kind of like, I think that he starts to like Pearl more. And I think
Mm-hmm.
he realizes how helpful she is and how that she's there to protect the family and his mom. And then, I just think that that growth just again shows how much he loves his mother and he loves his family. It's just,
Mm-hmm. I think this book is like full of love. It's like it shows like the family in such a good light. They're just so together, and I think that it's really great.
and you also get to see the love of the friends, which, and obviously like they're helping Joe. But I think the part that stuck out to me the most was whenever Cappy and Joe traded shoes and they were too small for Cappy and he didn't care at all. And I just like I thought that was so sweet. And I just thought that that showed like how much he has really like great relationships in his life and people that love him very much. And it's just like that.
Yeah. And like when he gets mad at his friend, when his friend like overhears his conversation with his dad and he's like, I love you, dad, and then his dad doesn't answer. I was like, oh, first of all, that like broke my heart. But then his friend was like, hey, are you okay? And then like he gets mad at him, but then later he's like, I'm really sorry. I just like your shoes, and I thought that was so sweet.
Yeah.
I was just looking at my notes, and I was like, the I think the author used like they repeat a lot of words in here, or like a lot of phrases, and I always really like to look at that because I just think that it really makes the chapters so much better. It really pulls everything together when they repeat something, and I'm like, oh, so good. Okay, so the question that I actually do have is, was the beer that they found in the woods, was that actually evidence? Because they were like, at one point he was like, this could be evidence, we shouldn't drink it, but then I think they did. So I was like, was it evidence or?
I don't think that it actually was, but I think that Joe was just, I mean, like they picked up everything. Like they picked up used condoms. And so
Yeah.
they were just like trying, and but then I don't know. I don't think it was real evidence. I don't think that, because he said that it was like a popular place for teenagers to go. And so I think that that was just like someone's stash. And, but I think that they also just really wanted to drink it. And so they were like,
Yeah.
no way there's fingerprints if it's been in water. They were like, okay. And they went with it. But I don't think it really would have impacted anything a lot, but I could be wrong. It could be.
I was just like, if it actually was evidence, I feel like you probably wouldn't want to drink it, but I mean, it probably wasn't. It was probably just out there, but I was just like, okay. Interesting. But I think that the police, I like how Joe has like found more evidence than like the police did. I was like, he found that can. I was like, okay. Guess they didn't really look into the river.
Yeah.
That kind of made me mad though, because I'm like, if the location of where, this happened is there's a forest really close by, and then, there's a lake really close by, wouldn't those be two excellent places to hide evidence if this is like a very planned attack and rape? So it seems like you should be doing a more thorough sweep, because if 13-year-old boys are able to spend 20 minutes and, hey, here's, a pile of clothes that could be from, the rapist after he went into the water, here is the gasoline can right in the lake. It seems that if they're able to put this together within 20 minutes, people who are trained for this stuff should be able to find it quicker and more easier. So it kind of made me mad, and I'm like, this is something that you should be doing. So why Joe the one who's finding all this?
Also, like, which police department is looking for it? Is it like all of them? Is it just the state one, or is it the tribal police force? I'm just kind of confused at who's actually doing the investigation for the thing. I thought that at first I thought it was all of them,
Yeah.
but like,
It was like the father called all three of the different people to come and interview. But yeah, I was kind of curious about that too, because you think that there would be, it doesn't really say who's taking care of it, and I think that that's probably why no one really found anything. I don't think that anyone was in charge necessarily, and they didn't. I don't think that they were taking it super seriously. And,
I don't know. I think that's probably gonna be a big factor in why Joe has to go and do a lot of this work himself, because the work's just not getting done. Like, they aren't looking like for the evidence, or I mean, I guess they probably are looking for it, but they're not doing a very good job. And I was like, well, he's finding this evidence, and he's 13.
yeah.
You would think with 3 different kinds of police, because the father called 3, that somebody would have found it. But I don't know. No one's really stepping up and saying, oh, this is definitely under my jurisdiction. I'm going to really try. It's, well, there's the state, there's the tribal, and then I'm pretty sure there's another one. I think, is it federal? And they're all kind of just like, well, there's the other 2. I'm sure they'll look and find something, and no one is really doing anything besides what it literally said was they marked off part of the path. And I'm like, that's not
Right.
More.
There was nobody out there looking for anything except for them. And I was like, who's really doing I just knew, like, and when they were in the hospital, they came and they talked to the dad, and I guess they took like maybe the mom's statement. I'm not really sure, but I know they definitely talked to the dad. And then after that, like, they said like that they marked off something, but I didn't really hear anything about like what they had actually discovered. Or I know the radio said that the crime took place in the roundhouse, but I was like, I don't really know. I haven't heard a lot of about the investigation.
And especially like the gas can. I feel like Joe reasoned that out so quickly and so easily that like I feel like a trained investigator should be able to reason that out pretty quickly. And so
Mhm.
it just, it shows that they're really not like super invested in this case like Joe and his father are.
He
Mhm.
figured that out at the hospital when he was like the handkerchief from his mom. He's like, it smells like gasoline. Where was gasoline? And
Yeah.
then you already know where it is. Well, let's see. There's gasoline, and this attack happened in the middle of nowhere in the roundhouse. We should be maybe looking for some kind of a clue there. And there
Yeah.
were matches. He put that together just so quickly while being, exhausted at the hospital, and then was able to, okay, someone was trying to maybe commit arson, and then just to be able to walk down and be like, here it is within a few minutes was just very smart.
Yeah.
It makes me mad that like you said, Maddie, the trained professionals aren't able to find anything.
Right.
Yeah. Also, did the guy who raped the mother, did he kidnap her and then take her to the roundhouse? Or do you think she was already there? Because, like, if she was going to pick up a file, you think she'd be, like, at an office, you know?
I was kind of confused as to where her office was in the first place. So I
Right.
don't know if it's like near the roundhouse, but it
Hmm.
seemed like it was because there was like a lake and a forest. But then he also talked about a parking lot, and like that's where her car was. I don't know. I think the fact that like her car was there and Joe didn't seem like suspicious that her car was there. Like I'm pretty sure that her office was around somewhere, but I don't really understand where.
That's what I was curious though too, is if I'm wondering if her getting a file, if that's not the whole truth to something. Because if her office is over there, then maybe she was just parked there, and the raper was just able to get her in the roundhouse. But I'm wondering though, just based off at least what I've picked up on the Reddit, I'm like, this seems like it's not really. There's a beach where people hang out, so there's a parking lot, but I'm not sure where an office would be suitable by a beach out
Yeah.
kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I'm wondering if picking up a file isn't the entire truth, or if something happened that she had to go there because of it and someone was waiting for her. So I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea. Yeah, I don't really know why an office would be like anywhere near. Maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't really think that, the roundhouse would be near an office. I just was like, doesn't really sound right. I hope that we get more detail on that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. I know some books, depending on, whatever, they'll have like a map in the beginning and like a layout. This I think, would be a book.
Yeah, I think it would too.
Biking a lot and going out places and having to walk to meet to go to their family's house. I think that would be really cool.
Hmm. Yeah, I like the description of the other people and like their lives, their houses, their families. I thought that was kind of important. It's a pretty diverse group. They're just like from each different, like they're from different neighborhoods. But they're like all really close friends. And I was like, it's just like a nice little detail like for like 13-year-old boys, and they're all friends. And I was like, oh, this is really sweet. But then you still get to like know what their lives are like and what their families are like.
And I think that it was a nice detail that the author added that like Cappy's family, they didn't have a woman in their life. And he said that there was like chaos within the house because there was no woman. And
Mm.
and he was talking about that like whenever or like right after he was talking about how they noticed how quickly his mom was gone and stuff like that. And I just thought that that was he valued his mother so much in his life, and he saw how not having a woman in the household could have affected his father and him.
Yeah. Kind of like the fact that he's an only sibling. I don't really know. I think that that's kind of important too, because it's not like he's dealing with this with like like a brother or a sister or anybody else. It's him and his dad, and that's it. It's like if his dad isn't paying attention to him and like what they're going through, it's like, you know, he's got nobody. He's got his friends, but his dad's really focused on his mom. And
Yeah, and that's oh my gosh, I can't talk. That's one of the reasons I liked when he kept pointing out that no one paid attention, or he couldn't really talk about when his mom accidentally punched him,
Yeah.
because his dad is so focused on helping his mom, and his mom is just not there right now. And like, I know you guys just said he has his friends, but it's different waking up and having to go meet your friends versus if you're having a really bad night, you could walk to a sibling's room. I think that's why he likes Pearl so much too. Is he starts to get along with her, because like she walked into his room and he was like, "Yeah, you can stay." It's like he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you can stay here." So I don't know. At first, I thought he was just being petty over stuff about, oh, Daddy didn't care where I was, and hey, Mom hit me, but you didn't care. But he has no one, and he's just trying to find some sort of attention through all of this because he's 13 and he's scared and he's upset about everything. So yeah.
I think he has really good friends, though. I think that they listen to him and like they understand what he's going through, so they don't. And like I think that them having fun together is like a good way to get him to like, not think about what happened 24/7. And I just think that he's like really good friends, and those are almost like I think that he really relies on them as like comfort because he doesn't have siblings, and I like that. I think it's a cute dynamic.
He kind of makes me think of just whenever Joe's talking about his friends, it's like, yeah, it's like me and my 3 friends and the 4 of us. And I could just so clearly picture, based off their descriptions, the 4 of them biking.
Yeah.
And Zach on his pink bike. That made me laugh so hard. He's like, he was going to paint it. But then when he realized nobody wanted to steal a pink bike, he kept riding it. So just little things like that within the 4 of them. And then it made me laugh. And even when they were trying to, they're looking at the crime scene, they just took a minute to all swim in the lake and make fun of each other. Like that was just dynamic of them. And then just going back to this book is about love. I think Emily said that it's all kinds of love. There's love between the mom and the dad, and then Joe's whole family, and then the love in his community that his family's giving him, and then him and his 3 best friends. Just the fact that they're all giving up their summer and their day to go help him, to be with
Right.
him, make sure he's eating, to trade shoes, like all these little things that they're doing is just so moving to read, especially these 13-year-old boys who are still, they're in that weird age of being kids but also trying to be adults. So
Yeah. I feel like Joe's a good mixture of that though. Like he's still a kid, but then like he has to deal with some adult problems, and I don't know. I think the author did a really good job at describing that. Something that I was thinking about though was that the mom, she doesn't really want to be like brought back and like with emotions because like she has to relive that event. And I thought that was interesting that whenever Joe went to go read to her, like she didn't want anything inspirational. She was like, "No, don't I don't want to be inspired. Like I went through like a lot of bad things and I can't handle that right now." I was like, I just felt so bad for her. It was very sad. I kind of like that Joe's a little, I mean, he's a little feisty in the book. He really speaks his mind. And like when they were in the hospital and then the woman came in, she was pregnant and she was like, "Don't you guys have a hospital of your own?" He was like, "Yeah," and I was like, I was like, "Yes, honestly, he is amazing."
I like his attention to detail. I know we had talked about when he was at the crime scene, but just even in the hospital, like he like studied that woman's magazine as he ripped it up. And I was they were talking about Cher, and it was like he's like, yeah, it really matched the face she was making. I'm pretty sure the paparazzi scared her when they took that. And I was just sitting there like, I would be such a wreck in that waiting room. You know, I'd be just kind of curled up in my own little world. But he's like, that woman's really mean, and the magazine she's reading is stupid too. And that's just the fact that I don't know, he was very smart about things, and even he took into account the way the doctor looked and acted. So
Yeah.
he knew much worse than what he was being told, even though he was a kid and wasn't supposed to know. So he's really good at paying attention to little things and catching on to stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, she had to be rushed into surgery. And I mean that the extent of what happened must have been bad. Like, I mean, I was just thinking like I didn't really know, like I know that they said like she had like blood on her, but I just thought maybe it was like maybe her nose or something, but no, she was like she had to go into surgery and I was like that's extremely scary for like anybody to deal with at all. But especially when you're a 13-year-old kid and then they're like, "Oh, yeah, like your mom, she has to go into surgery and uh hope for the best." And then there was that little like sigh of relief when she got out of surgery with him, and he was like, "I know things aren't good right now, but at least they're a little bit better." I liked that detail.
I like to, and this isn't as much of a big thing throughout the story, but I just found it interesting is Joe is not his actual name. He's the second, he has his dad's name. And he was so adamant about, I will not be Junior, I will not go by my middle name, I am not this copy of my dad, I'm picking my own name, I'm picking Joe. And then later on he's like, oh, that's my great grandfather? Oh, well.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so funny because he was like,
Yeah.
I'm my person, and he picks a name that is now someone, it's his great grandfather, and he's like, well,
That was so funny.
you tried so hard. 2 years after going by it, they're like, oh yeah, that's your great grandfather, and he's like, well, I'm already 2 years in, I might as well just be Joe. So
Yeah.
that's funny.
I liked when his dad kind of like, I mean, I feel like his dad really did know that he was reading the books, but like when he really did a terrible job at like hiding that he was reading the books, his dad was just like accepting it. He was like, it's fine. And then they had that moment where he said that it felt like they were like two adults and like they understood each other in that moment. I thought that was so important just because his dad doesn't, in certain moments, it feels like his dad doesn't treat him like a kid.
I thought that was cool that we had that in the very beginning of the chapter before they realized like his mom was gone, because it went from him in the study with adult books that he shouldn't be reading because he's a kid, and then versus him in the study with his dad going through files because he needs to understand the situation, and he needs to grow up a little bit and help him to become a man. So I thought that was just how the same actions in one room just changed so quickly and what it meant. I thought that was really well done too.
I think they use nature a lot in this book. Like, I think that's really, like, that's a good detail that the authors added. Like, the first thing that they were doing was tearing trees out of, like, the foundation of their house, I think. And he was like, no, I have to keep me going. Like, even when his dad was like, I'm done. He was like, no, I have to keep going. And I felt like from the very beginning, the author was, like, introducing these different elements. And I was like, that's really cool. The writing is just so good.
I liked when he had to go to the gas station to get milk because the milk was spoiled. And for Joe, this is kind of one of his more, I don't want to say childish, but one of his more like younger kind of mindset moments. He's like, Mom, never let the milk go bad. And he's like, I can't be drinking this. I don't want to drink sink water. So the fact that he was like, Mom, the milk's bad. I'm not drinking that. It was just, it kind of brought me back to remembering he is this 13-year-old boy and he just wanted an after snack. And it was just kind of cute to watch him. And then I liked the line where it said, she looked at me in that moment like I was her hero because he was trying to help her. You know, that was her job. She liked things in order. She was very proud of keeping, you know, her house neat and in order and everything ready for, you know, the two important guys in her life. And the fact that he was like, well, you don't have to worry. I can go fix this for you. I just thought that was really sweet. And I think everything she was going through, the fact that he was like, well, I can go and get that for you so that you don't have to worry about it for Dad. I thought that was really sweet.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that was so sweet, I think the dad, didn't he like make dinner wrong on purpose so that she would want to cook again? I thought that was so funny because they were like, this is so bad, but they decided to eat it anyway.
She was making is this real?
Yeah. No, it came from the backyard. And I was like, oh, like that was just a good thing because you got to see like that, like the happy family coming back for like a minute, and I was like, that's so sweet. Something that the author also mentioned was when she dropped that casserole, because like the dad scared her. I think one of the things that she said was that he would later die from a heart attack or something. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that he said, or it was said that like he could have pretended to have the heart attack that would later kill him or something. I was like, that's sad. We already know the dad's gonna die.
And then he also talks about how one of his friends dies whenever he's introducing them.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't it Cappy?
Yes. Oh, I thought it was Angus, but I could be wrong.
I might be wrong too.
But he's like talking about how he does. He talks about how some of the characters die. And it was like, whenever I was reading that part, though, I thought that it was whenever they were like playing around with each other. It was whenever like before anything happened, and what would have happened if the dad had went in and like not announced himself, and like if he had scared her, he would like just like pretend he was having a heart attack or something. But I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah,
that makes me sad because I caught on. I know when they talked about one of his friends dying, but I didn't catch on that was. It's kind of sad.
I think that happened.
I remember them talking about heart attack, but I thought that it was like a joke. I hoped it was a joke. I guess.
Please be a joke. Trying to find out what page that was.
I know that
I did like
ended on page 45.
Just going back from I don't know, just back what we were talking about when she drops the casserole. Just I like that we again see how much not only they're in love, but how much the dad really loves his mom. Just because it's like on a normal day he would walk in and if she was cooking, he would wrap his arms around her and just talk to her as she finished. Not trying to bother her, but just to be with her. And I'm like, that is not only just really sweet and kind, but it's also just adorable. Because I know a lot of times people will be like, oh, Mom, Dad, gross. You know, just being, especially probably being a 13-year-old boy, Joe has probably done that to his parents. But the fact that he is stopping and saying, you know, I miss the way that they would both go about their day, but just, you know, instead of being two separate people, they just kind of come together and just be together. And I thought that was really sweet.
Okay, I found it. It says, or he could have got down on his knees and pretended to have the heart attack that later killed him. So I don't really know. Maybe he does die.
I bet he doesn't die in the book, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't see him dying right now.
I bet he just, because Joe is writing this from like later on in his life, or telling.
Yeah, I had 3 friends, and I still keep up with 2 of them, although one has passed. So it's definitely been some time.
Yeah.
I'm curious at the end if it's gonna kind of break the fourth wall and be like, and here I am now sitting, 20 years later writing this, maybe he's gonna, I don't know if it's a speech or if he's writing it for his own amusement or if he's gonna pass it down to somebody. Or if it's just him recalling stuff. I'm interested to see how that plays out.
And I think if that does happen, I think it'd be cool to see like how the mother is doing, and like if you don't get to see in the rest of the book, like if she ever like regains herself really. I think it'd be cool to see like if she's doing well and how, everything else is going in their lives. And, hopefully the guy is caught that did it. But
that moment when Joe was asking his dad, he's like, what are we gonna do when we catch him? Like when we catch him. And then his dad was like paused for a second and like really thought about it and was like really intense. I was like, that's because like, I mean, what would you do? I mean, he obviously wants to kill him, and I was like, and Joe wants to kill him too, so I don't know. I think that each of these chapters just ends with like such a good line. Every chapter.
It's just such a well-written book. It's hard not to like just read it all.
Yeah.
I think this would be a good book for a movie, but I'm also, though, I would be fearful if this was to be a movie because there's so much little detail and everything that even though it's, it's one person, it's Joe's head, it's Joe's thoughts, he does a good job of placing himself in the shoes of other people and, describing stuff or really conveying emotion. And though I would love to, like, I have an image of how this is playing out in my head, I think it'd be cool to see, other people like, portray it, but it's just so well done that it just paints such a vivid picture in my head of this is his home life, this is his friend group, this is his community, and it's really well done.
I was thinking about that too. I was like, I would love to watch a movie about this, but it wouldn't be as good as the book. There's no way. But
yeah,
it's still really, I mean, just alone in the first like 4 chapters, it's already such a good story that I would watch.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to the best part, I'm sure.
Yeah, we are 4 chapters in, and I'm already so invested on what's going to happen, and so much has already happened. Sometimes, some books, it takes a while. It takes like the first couple chapters just to build up some background information before anything happens. In chapter 1, we have one of the biggest events in his life happen, followed by just how you cope with everything. And then now it went from, I think just an easy breakdown is like his mother's attack, how he coped, and the next chapters are what he's going to do about it, leading up what's happening. And it's so well done and paced so nicely.
Yeah, I love how fast paced it is because there's not like a detail in the book that like isn't important. Like everything that the authors said is like had a meaning, and I've always thought that I was just like, wow, this isn't like a book that you would get bored in. It's just the way that's written. There's always something happening. There's always an event. It's really fast paced. A lot's happening. I mean, just in the 4 chapters that we've read, I mean, everything's happened. There's so many things that have happened. Like you said, we didn't wait for some big event. It happened at, like the first couple pages.
Yeah, and I like what you just said. Like, no little detail isn't important. Even like, his aunt starts smoking. That's important because she never smokes and she's so worried. The fact about how quietly his mother walked up the stairs, and to him it was like she was a ghost, just like out of her body, which was just important. The fact that even what the dog looked like, because it was just a combination of all these other breeds. Every little detail has been important, and nothing is out of place in this book. not one line just seems wrong. Anything from just him being outside and being eaten by mosquitoes, like even that was important because he was just so mad at everything that he took it out on them. Like it was just, it's really well done. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
That was about all. That's about everything for me. I know I kind of had a little set of notes, but I mean we covered. At least I know I got to talk about everything I wanted to, but just it was really, it's always good. I like reading it by myself and kind of thinking about it, but I like discussing it because you all pointed out stuff that I didn't even think about. So
the same. I love group discussions because I always get more than just my view on something.
cool.
I'll stop recording now.